Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about Quentin Tarantino's breakthrough 1992 hit, Reservoir Dogs. And in this film, 8 gangsters assemble to carry out a jewellery heist. All but 2 of them, Boss Joe Cabot and his son Eddie, are known only by their colour-based code names. We have Mr. Brown, Mr. White, Mr. Orange, and so on. It's safe to say that Mr. Pink is not too thrilled about his assigned code. Despite careful preparation, the heist goes badly wrong. The cops arrive much faster than expected, and a fierce gunfight ensues. 2 of the gang are hit, 1 fatally, and several bystanders also get gunned down. The gangsters scatter into several small groups, independently making their way to the prearranged safe house. At said safe house, tempers quickly flare. Mr. Pink says the cops were there much faster than they should have been and insists that the job was a setup. Mr. White is furious that the apparently psychotic Mr. Blonde was allowed on the team. Mr. Orange is busy holding in his guts, having been badly shot in the escape. It's a powder keg situation, with multiple impetuous, strong-willed, morally flexible men under high pressure. How long can it be before the whole thing explodes, and who will be left standing when it does? So writer-director Quentin Tarantino was working at a video store when he wrote this script, and he originally planned to shoot the film with his friends on a budget of about $30,000. But in one of those happenstances that kind of only happens in Hollywood, one of said friends gave a copy of the script to his acting teacher, and the acting teacher's wife gave it to Harvey Keitel, and suddenly Tarantino had a budget of $1.5 million and some recognisable name actors. He rose to the opportunity and the challenge, delivering a movie that 30 years later is still regarded as an important and influential milestone in independent filmmaking. Reservoir Dogs was a hit at film festivals and with critics, and it also did pretty well financially. The US box office was only about double the budget, which is more or less break-even territory, but it also did well internationally and then on home video. It certainly generated enough buzz that Tarantino's next film, a little number called Pulp Fiction, would enjoy only a $10 million budget. Now, as you probably know, that went on to be a monster hit, and while I don't personally rate Tarantino's subsequent career that highly, he's certainly become a high-profile director with a history of commercial success at very least. And Reservoir Dogs is the foundation of all that. But is it a good movie? Well, in my opinion, yes. But it won't be to all tastes, because it contains some very confronting content. Perhaps unsurprisingly for a bunch of hardened criminals, the characters in this film are not very nice people. They're all violent men who employ force as a first resort. Even Mr. White, who so objects to Mr. Blonde's murder of bystanders, is perfectly willing to beat a captured cop for information. The character's dialogue is also drenched in profanity, as well as racist, sexist, and homophobic slurs. Even in this rough and unpleasant group, however, Mr. Blonde's violence and cruelty stands out. He sadistically tortures the captured police officer in a chilling and quite graphic scene, which is definitely not easy to watch. Now, I don't think that all of the confronting content in the film works that well. The opening discussion of the song Like a Virgin feels a bit juvenile to me these days, for instance. Though perhaps the juvenility is the part of the point. None of these men are portrayed as deep thinkers, after all. On the other hand, the confronting content is sometimes very effective. For instance, there are sequences like Mr. Orange's commode scene, which is really well put together, both in terms of what's being said and how it's structured. Which brings us to the question of the writing in general. The film garnered a lot of attention for the way it was told. Then novice filmmaker Quentin Tarantino adopted a non-linear approach to the story, starting in media res, with the gang already assembled and having breakfast together. The film then leapt to after the heist, and the jewellery robbery will in fact never be shown on camera. We only hear second-hand how things initially went wrong. Possibly, this was a cost-saving strategy from the days when Tarantino was expecting to make the film for $30,000, but whatever the reason, it was a bold choice that it could have gone really wrong. As it turns out, however, it works really well here. Tarantino continues to tell the story in non-linear fashion, alternating sequences of the steady unravelling of the men in the safe house with scenes of how and why each of them came to be involved in this particular heist. Now, if you've watched more than a couple of my videos, you've probably at least heard me in passing speak dismissively of flashbacks as a narrative technique, because I too often find them used as a lazy trick, or because they kill the momentum of what's happening in the film's current day. In Reservoir Dogs, however, the flashbacks are used with clear intent and genuine skill. Tarantino doesn't just go for a sudden shock or twist with any of them. He instead uses them to contextualise the events of the now and to build tension as the film heads towards its climax. It's genuinely fine and clever work, and I wish it had got more attention than Tarantino's admittedly snappy and highly quotable dialogue did, because I think it's actually the more interesting part of the film. Now, when Harvey Keitel read the script and agreed to help produce the film, it dramatically changed the kind of cast that Tarantino could use, and he seized that opportunity. While the then unknown George Clooney did not manage to land a role, though he did audition, the film boasts central performances from Tim Roth, Steve Buscemi, and of course Keitel himself. Each of those men is reliably capable and entertaining on screen, and they all deliver here, even if it is a bit strange these days to see them all looking so young. So young. It is a 30-year-old film, after all. The real eye-opening performance, though, comes from Michael Madsen as Mr. Blonde. He's fantastic in this role. It's actually hard to reconcile the genuinely menacing sociopath he presents here with the fumbling, barely coherent performance he offers in Blood Rain, that's for sure. Reservoir Dogs is a violent, sometimes unpleasant film, but it's a very well-constructed, well-acted one. I can see why Keitel was sufficiently impressed with the script to lend it his support and help it drum up a much larger budget than originally planned. If you've not seen it and you're not put off by the strength of the content, give it a watch. It's worth your time. Next time, one of the many screen adaptation of Richard Cannell's short story, The Most Dangerous Game. It's 1961's Bloodlust. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it.